an analytical psychological analysis of narcissistic defense mechanisms under threat of control. Analytical psychology, as developed by Carl Jung, is grounded in the study of the deep structures of the human psyche, particularly the concepts of the shadow and the social mask or persona. Through this theoretical framework, one can interpret the acute defensive responses that certain personalities with narcissistic traits may display when confronting individuals who possess a high level of critical awareness or effective resistance to psychological manipulation techniques. The psychological structure of the narcissistic personality. In the Jungian model, the concept of the shadow refers to the repressed or unacknowledged aspects of the personality that the individual seeks to deny or hide from their self-awareness. In narcissistic patterns, there is a presumed distinct difficulty in confronting these aspects or integrating them into the self-image. This leads to a frequent reliance on the mechanism of psychological projection, where unacceptable traits or impulses are attributed to others rather than being acknowledged internally. As for the persona, it is the structure that the individual uses for social adaptation and to present an acceptable image of themselves to society. However, the narcissistic personality may over-identify with this external image to the extent that the social mask becomes the primary source of self-identity. This is accompanied by what can be described as ego inflation, a defensive psychological construct aimed at protecting the self from internal feelings of inferiority or fragility. The dynamic stages of narcissistic response upon loss of control. When a narcissistic personality encounters an individual who is difficult to influence or emotionally subjugate, a series of escalating defensive responses may emerge, which can be divided into three main stages. 1. The stage of psychological reconnaissance. The process begins with an attempt to assess the psychological structure of the other party and test their emotional or psychological vulnerabilities. This stage includes monitoring reactions, testing personal boundaries, and analyzing response patterns. When attempts at psychological penetration fail, the opposing party may be perceived as a direct threat to the stability of the narcissistic self-image. 2. The stage of compensation and defensive escalation. As the ability to exert influence or control declines, the defensive ego tends to escalate compensatory behaviors. This stage may include increasing the intensity of psychological aggression or employing methods such as gaslighting, undermining the other party's perception of reality, psychological projection, emotional manipulation, triangulation, polarization of social parties to validate the narcissistic narrative or exert indirect social pressure. These behaviors are viewed as attempts to restore a sense of psychological dominance and maintain the cohesion of the self-image. 3. The stage of inversion and the reshaping of reality. In more severe cases, a defensive response may emerge based on reinterpreting facts in a way that reverses psychological roles. Thus, the self is represented as the victim, while the other party is portrayed as the source of aggression or threat. This stage is linked to what is known in psychological literature as a narcissistic injury, a profound sense of humiliation or a threat to self-worth. Strategies of psychological pressure and social influence. Certain narcissistic personalities may rely on a combination of complex methods aimed at destabilizing the psychological equilibrium of the opposing party, most notably influencing collective perception by capitalizing on the social environment's tendency to sympathize with the party that appears more fragile or harmed. Blending truth with misinformation, a technique that relies on introducing factual elements into a narrative containing distortions or inaccurate conclusions, making immediate critical verification more difficult. Gradual social isolation, by weakening the targeted party's social support network or sowing doubts about them within their surroundings. Cognitive and emotional fatigue, by overwhelming the individual with a torrent of simultaneous accusations or psychological pressures, leading to the depletion of their capacity for rational analysis and decision-making. Undermining trust in self-perception. As a result of continuous manipulation of facts, memories, and emotions, which may drive the individual to increasingly doubt their own judgments. The therapeutic dimension and psychological liberation. From the perspective of analytical psychology, extreme narcissistic behaviors do not express genuine psychological strength. Rather, they reflect a deep internal fragility and a fear of losing control or psychological exposure. Therefore, psychological recovery focuses on developing an awareness of these defensive patterns and understanding them without full emotional engagement. Two essential strategies emerge here. Developing the observing self, the ability to observe manipulative behaviors and analyze them with critical awareness, without emotionally identifying with them or transforming them into a direct threat to self-identity. Anchoring psychological reality, through the objective documentation of events, relying on trusted support sources, and reinforcing healthy psychological boundaries. This helps the individual restore confidence in their self-perception and achieve a more balanced psychological maturity. In the Jungian context, confronting difficult psychological experiences and integrating them into consciousness can support the process of individuation, the process through which an individual seeks to achieve a deeper integration among the various components of their personality and reach a more mature and stable self-awareness.